Hello, hello! Welcome to ClubChrisette. I'm your host, Chrisette, and today we are hopping back into ClubChrisette. I know it's been like 2 weeks since we played this game, but I've been so busy lately, but I want you to know that I'm still thinking about this game. So when we last left off, we discovered that people even in Easteria do not like Mion, as evidenced by what happened at the festival when she got pelted with a rock. And guys, I believe his parents died, and his sister, his parents did die, and his sister got taken into the Westeria temple to serve. Without further ado, let us hop back into Cursed Side. The next morning, as I rolled around in bed, the scene of me crying in Mion's arms kept looping in my mind. Her warmth felt nice at the time, but now, just thinking about what happened made me want to hide in my bedsheet forever. Would Mion brag to Sasa about it? Oh, goodbye, dear manhood. Let me try and remember my first task for today. Right, clean Mion's room. Of course. With a groan, I climbed out of my bedsheet and headed off. When I arrived inside Mion's room, she gave me her usual greeting. Guy? Hey, good. Nothing out of the ordinary so far. Let's pretend nothing happened last night. Wow, that came out sounding real kinky. Guy? Stupid Mio, just move on already. Yes, I cried, so go ahead and laugh away. As I twirled to face Mion, I spotted a set of clothes folded across her lap. These should be a better fit for you, Mion said. In truth, I have already grown used to my oversized clothes. I had given up on ever receiving a new set, least of all from Mion. This meant she had me in her thoughts, and for that, I only had one response. Thank you, Mion. Mion tossed the set of clothes at my face, and I headed for the change room. At last, I could say goodbye to these shoes that slipped out whenever I walked too fast. No more rolling up my sleeves 100 times a day. I stripped off these old clothes and put the new ones Mion had prepared for me. The new shirt had sleeves that ended right on my wrist. These new pants reached right down to my ankles, which hopefully meant no more tripping over them and face-planting onto the carpet. The shoes fit just right, too. Even without asking for my measurements, Mion's estimates were spot on. We did see each other almost daily, after all. I smiled at the thought. Loke might see me as a nobody, but I happen to be Mion's special servant. At least I hope so. I returned to Mion's room with my chin raised. What do you think? Mion nodded in approval. I could have sworn she even flashed a hint of a smile. When she opened her mouth to speak, I knew praises were imminent. Send them my way, Mion. 3 oranges, 6 apples, warm water, 9 incense sticks. Well, it never hurt to dream. Mion's so thoughtful, honestly. I know at first I was like, no one's delightful in this game. But the more and more we get to know each other, the more we start moving beyond the complexities, or into the complexities of people, the more delightful they become and the more sense they make. Anyway, I'm tongue-tied right now. The goddesses must have smiled upon me, as I somehow managed to survive for 10 years in this temple. Wow, talk about a flash forward. With Sasa by my side, and alright, I guessed Mion as well. I had scavenged just enough sanity to get by. One morning, Loke summoned every member of the temple into his chamber. In my decade of slavery here, not once had this taken place. Aside from a few whispers, the hall remained silent while people gathered. They must have shared my sense of unease. Among the crowd of guards and servants, I spotted Mion standing next to Sasa. Having them by my side would help settle my nerves, but squeezing through the people would draw too much attention, so I chose to keep still. Loke sat on his throne behind the curtain as always. I wonder what he looks like behind the curtain, honestly. Like, is he just Reinhardt size, or does he look like Jaime Lannister? But anyway, once everyone had arrived, he cleared his throat to speak. As of today, we are at war with Westeria. Gasps echoed across the hall, mostly coming from the guards. They were, after all, the most likely to be sent to war. We servants only knew how to handle brooms, not spears. Everyone knew East and Westeria had been butting heads, so this war announcement hardly came as a surprise. To be honest, unless Westeria invaded our temple, I doubted it would affect me at all. Westeria carries a treasure that'll bring great wealth to our nation, Loke continued. We must obtain it by any means necessary. I had never heard of Westeria possessing any treasure, but it must be something that would help the king score a mountain of gold. My parents sold me here for the same reason. Gold, gold, gold. I might only be a year away from turning 18, but I still hated adults. It makes sense that he holds that kind of grudge against his parents. Therefore, it kind of just impacting how he views all adults, you know. Like, he sees them as selfish and greedy, etc. I've invited Queen Hadrian for a meeting in our short temple tonight. When she passes Melody Way, we'll begin our ambush and take her hostage, Loke said. She'll have her soldiers with her, but fear not, for Mion has performed a ritual to ensure our victory. The guards traded concerned looks. Whether they succeeded or not, tonight there would be bloodshed. Still, none of them dared to voice their discontentment, as doing so might cost them their heads before sunset. Mion's taller! Look at her! She's no longer like this tall! She's so cute! And her hair's gotten extra long. Oh my goodness, look at those ponytails. They go on for days. I cast a glance at Mion, who was staring at her shoes. Loke said she had performed a ritual for tonight's battle, so she must have known about it, but she never gave me a heads up. She probably only told Sasa, which, I confessed, stung a little. Sasa rubbed a hand over Mion's back. The king had forced Mion to participate in this evening's slaughter, yet I still only cared about my petty feelings. Loke dismissed the audience, and with heavy strides, the guards and servants resumed their duties. Mion pulled Sasa toward her room, and I followed them inside. Staying in Melody Way tonight will be dangerous, Mion tugged Sasa's sleeve. You should hide here with us until sunrise. I deserved a smack for thinking the war was no business of mine. It only occurred to me that Sasa's home sat right next to tonight's battle zone. I no longer even desired to be around her. Sasa gently lowered Mion's hand. There's no way I can leave my children to save myself. Just bring your kids along, I said. And all the other villagers? The king would never allow it. Sasa put one hand on my shoulder and the other on Mion's. We'll lock our doors tight, so there's no need to worry. I never knew doors were immune to swords, explosion, and whatever else the soldiers decided to bring tonight. Mion clung to Sasa's sleeve, probably feeling as unconvinced as I did. Sasa made the three of us hold hands and form a triangle. We did this a lot as children, but stopped once Mion and I became teenagers. Perhaps Sasa thought it might embarrass us. To be honest, I wish we never stopped. See my hands? Sasa asked. I felt her fingers shaking in between mine, yet her smile never waned. Of course I'm terrified, but I'd rather die as a person than survive as a monster. I imagined how it must feel to be in Sasa's shoes. If I cowered in the temple, then learned the next morning that Melody Way had been burned to the ground, my heart too would be charred black. You know, I had a fight with my husband one morning, Sasa said. It was over the dumbest thing, too. He then died in a work accident on the same night. I'll always regret parting with him that way. Whenever Mion and I quarreled, Sasa would always force us to make up. At last, I understood why. Why am I suddenly telling you this? Tears surfaced in Sasa's eyes. Oh, I'm burdening you angels with my silly problems. I'm sorry, you two. Sasa shed tears. Oh my god, poor Sasa! Sasa shed tears in front of me for the first time, yet even now, she forced a shaky smile for my sake as well as Mion's. All she ever thought about was us. If I had grown up faster, maybe I could have helped her shoulder those burdens. In recent years, whenever Sasa smiled, I could spot wrinkles on her cheeks. The skin under her eyes had been looking more and more worn as well. When I was little, I always used to overhear the guards talking about how pretty Sasa was. Those conversations died out several years ago. Of course, Sasa would always be comparable to a goddess in my eyes, but time truly waited for no one. Sasa told us her secret knowing she might die tonight. I was old enough to understand that, so please, start thinking of yourself for a change. Wiping away her tears, Sasa squeezed our hands in hers. Pray for me tonight, both of you. With you thinking about me, I'll be okay. I know this is supposed to be like her smug look, but right now it does give off worry, and I appreciate that look is kind of versatile. Sasa pinched Mion's cheeks. You're forced to play a role in this war, but don't blame yourself, okay? As Mion and I grew up, Sasa had been pinching our faces less and less. Seeing her do so again filled my heart with nostalgia. In Sasa's eyes, we would probably always be children. I loathed being called a kid, but for her, I would make an exception. As Sasa rose to leave, Mion darted to the doors and blocked her path. Sasa gave Mion's ear a gentle pull. Please don't do this to me. With gritted teeth, Mion shook her head. She looked like a spoiled child refusing to let a friend go home. Still, right now, I in fact really wanted to bar the doors with her. Sasa's smile vanished. Mion, stop that at once. Those words made Mion jolt and step out of the way. Even when we were spoiled brats, Sasa rarely lost her patience with us. Just by putting on a serious expression, she could make us obey her, and 10 years later, that was still the case. Mion's lips twitched, looking like she wanted to cry. Sasa embraced her and whispered comforting words into her ears. It's okay, little angel. There's no way I'll die before getting you two's wedding invite. Aww. Please, Sasa, stop teasing and worrying about us at a time like this. Nobody would fault you for acting spoiled once in a while. Once Sasa left the room, Mion told me what to gather for her next ritual. No way would we simply pray for luck to be on her side. Too much had happened to both of us for it to be that reliable. I'm assuming this ritual is going to be to help Sasa be protected tonight. What is this song? It's very upbeat, like holy crap. Once I finished gathering the items needed for the ritual, I dashed back toward Mion's room. Anxiety numbed my nerves, causing me to stumble in the corridor and spill the fruit bowl. I picked the fruits back up, cursing as I noticed dents on some of the apples. Those were the only ones left in stock. With no time to buy new ones, I shoved them back in the bowl and ran back into Mion's room. Sorry I messed up. I put down the bowl and showed Mion the dented apples. Mion sighed. They're small dents, at least. I repeatedly slapped myself across the head. Mion forced my arm down. Guy, I've been doing this all my life. I'll make it work, so stop blaming yourself. When I first met Mion, she knew nothing about comforting others. I wanted to hug her for having become so considerate, but Sasa took priority right now. Once I lit those incense sticks, Mion went to work. The floor rumbled so much I could feel my brain bumping against my skull. Mion clutched her chest and curled into a ball. I had seen this happen from time to time during her rituals as of late. We still had no idea why. If she kept this up, I fear I might lose her before the day ended. When I reached in to interrupt Mion, she slapped my hand away. My breath clogged in my throat as I wondered if I should force her to stop, but ceasing the spell could cost Sasa her life. If anything happened to Sasa, Mion might throw off her hat and curse me on the spot. Mion stopped chanting and I held her before she collapsed onto the carpet. She pulled away from me and pounded her fist against the floor. The vision was all blurry again. When have I become so useless? That's on me, I said, choking back tears. It's because I ruined those apples. Mion shook her head. You know this has been happening to me for a while now. These rituals are becoming more and more difficult. Am I losing my powers? If that meant Mion could say goodbye to that hat of hers, I would welcome it. Loke might have a different reaction, though. In my years of service, I have noticed Mion's mood could affect her powers. The king has forced her to support his war, and now her dearest friend might be paying the price. That could explain why her spells were faltering. Mion pulled her arm back, looking ready to punch the floor again. I seized her wrist to stop her from breaking her knuckles. So is Sasa going to be okay? It's me we're talking about, Mion said. She'll be fine. I just wish I had enough power to protect the whole village. Indeed, even with Mion telling me Sasa would survive, I found no cause for celebration. I wondered how many lives would be sacrificed tonight in the name of greed. As the sun descended, I sat alongside with Mion, with our backs against the wall. The birds croaked outside as they always did. For them, this was the start of another ordinary night. Mion tilted her head as she dozed off yet again. I pulled out a blanket from the closet and draped it over her. She breathed peacefully as I waited in silence for the war to commence. What was Sasa up to? I imagined her sitting in the corner of her living room with her arms wrapped around her children. As she screamed on the inside, she would tell her kids there's nothing to worry about. Sasa was Sasa, even at a time like this. I heard an explosion coming from the village. On any other day, I might have mistaken this noise for fireworks. From this far, the blast sounded faint, allowing Mion to sleep right through it. How I wish I could do the same and be spared from this terror. I cupped both hands over my ears in hopes of blocking out the noise. There should be no way for me to hear any screams from this far, but I swore I heard them ringing in my head. If Loke's armies fell, the Westarians would be banging on the temple doors in a matter of hours. So much for the war having no effect on me. Even at a time like this, he still cares only about himself. That's kind of bad. Like, he's not really emotionally evolved in the time of 10 years. I wanted to flee the temple and run as far away from the noise as possible. Mion could come along, but I knew she would refuse. No way she would budge until she knew Sasa was okay. Oh, goddesses, please spare the life of this coward. Oh, plus Mion and Sasa as well. Not too much of an ask, I prayed. Okay, let's see. The next morning, Mion shook me awake. While Sasa shivered with her kids inside the war zone, I had managed to snooze through the entire night. The blanket I gave Mion was now draped over me instead. King Loke summoned us again, Mion said. I threw off my blanket and followed her toward the throne room. Mion's hands quivered as she walked. I wanted to hold them and calm her, but my hands were shaking just as badly. If anything happened to Sasa, the Westarians had no need to battle, for I swore the king would die by my own hands. Mion and I arrived inside Loke's chamber. Guards and servants filled the hall just like yesterday, but there seemed to be less of them this morning. Did some of the soldiers die last night? I gulped at the possibility. Mion and I surveyed the hall in hopes of spotting Sasa. Her clothing stood out from everybody else's, so she'd be easy to locate. I scanned my eyes across the room 3 times, but she was nowhere in sight. It's early, so I bet she's still at home, that's all, I said. Mion nodded, shuffling a step closer toward me. Once everyone had gathered, Loke had begun to speak. Contrary to Mion's forecast, Queen Hydrian managed to escape last night. He turned to face Mion, who stared at the red carpet to avoid his gaze. Her spell didn't work, or her vision came out blurry. She was already saying that that's been happening. I had no interest in knowing about what happened to the Queen of Westeria. Hurry up and dismiss us already. With Mion's powers no longer stable, I needed to go and check on Sasa right away. The king ordered us to resume our duties, and I immediately snuck out. Mion stayed back in the temple, waiting for my good news. I sprinted along the street until my sides cramped up, and I resorted into jogging with a grimace. By the time I reached Melody Way, sweat had glued my shirt against my chest. As I gasped for breath, I looked around the village's remains. Bodies of both East and Westarian soldiers littered the road. Neither side could really be labeled victorious. The reeks of their corpses forced me to cup my nose. Guards, as well as civilians, carried the bodies away on stretchers. Thank goodness Mion stayed in the temple. Her ritual contributed to this mess, and she had no need to see that in person. A fair number of homes had been burnt to ashes. Even with their fires put out, the smoke continued to sting my eyes. These explosions I heard last night must be responsible for this. Even after all these years, I still had no idea which house belonged to Sasa. I wanted to knock myself over the head, as if doing so would suddenly make me know where to look. As a guard walked by, I waved him over. He glared at me, probably annoyed that he was being bossed around by a servant. That lady who performs in our temple, which house is hers? I asked. What? How should I know? The guard frowned. You think I'm some kind of stalker? Useless, I wanted to bark. I ran off in hopes of finding someone who might be able to help. Perhaps one of the civilians might know. I heard bells ringing behind me, the exact sound Sasa made whenever she moved her arms. Looked like she found me first. Who cared if we failed to kidnap the queen? Mion had saved Sasa, and for that, I owed her a hug. I spun around, expecting to see Sasa, but I was met with an unfamiliar face. This woman I saw wore the same clothes as Sasa, so she too must be a belstress. These bells on her arms produced the same noise, which resulted in the mix-up. I tugged on the woman's sleeves. Hey, you know Sasa, right? Have you seen her around? You mean Miss I got handpicked by the king himself? No, haven't seen her. The woman swung her free arm and strode off. Joke's on me for thinking all belstresses had a kind heart. A pair of guards bumped into my arm as they shuffled past me, carrying a body on a stretcher. No! Maybe it's another belstress. It has to be. The corpse's arm dangled underneath the cloth. I swore my heart shattered when I saw those bells attached to the arm sleeve. Strands of hair peeked out from inside the cloth as well. The color resembled that of Sasa's hair far too much. Calm down, guy. You had mistaken the belstress earlier as Sasa too. This must be another one of your little blunders. Silly guy. With trembling hands, I reached for the cloth. One of the shoulders slapped my hand aside.
The cloth is here for a reason. I am doing this for your own good.
I imagined what kind of state that carcass was in. Perhaps the skin had been charred beyond recognition. It might be my own mind playing tricks on me, but for a second, I thought the flesh smelled like chicken. The thought almost made me vomit. Tell me that's not Sasa.
Her entire family's been struck by a stray bomb, the soldier said.
No! Are you deaf? I said, tell me that's not Sasa.
The soldier dodged my gaze and confirmed it for me.
My knees almost buckled as I watched them dump Sasa's corpse in a corner where all the bodies were being piled. These guards acted as if they were taking out the garbage. I had no idea who those other corpses were, but Sasa deserved better than this. No, Mion said things would turn out okay. Did the ritual fail because I had spoiled those apples? The possibility sapped the strength from my legs, and I leaned against a lantern post for support. Sasa.
I'm pretty stunned at the fact that they straight up did that, honestly. I was not expecting them to take out Sasa. Like, when it, was realized that she was an adult and had children, I knew she wouldn't be around, but I like her a lot as a supporting character, Like,
God damn. I lost track of how much time I had spent walking around Melody Way. If Float caught me slacking, I might be executed, but going back would mean having to tell Mion about Sasa. Compared to that, death might be a nice way out. Eventually, I lumbered my way back into the temple. As I paused outside Mion's room, I imagined what her reaction to the news would be. The thought made me want to run away. With a sigh, I reached for the door handles. These doors felt so damn heavy today, I almost needed to use both arms to slide them open. The second I walk in, I thought Mion would pounce at me and demand to know what happened. Instead, I found her laying on the floor. Her heavy breathing told me she had not simply fallen asleep. I crouched beside Mion and slipped a hand under her veil. Her forehead felt warm enough to boil an egg. She must have been holding back this fever since this morning. I should have checked on her before I left. As I rose to get help, Mion held onto my sleeve. Guy? Hearing Mion say my name normally made my day. This time around, the word felt like a claw ripping down my neck. Tell me Sasa's okay, Mion said. Tell me. Now I knew how the guard felt when I forced him to confirm Sasa's death. I opened my mouth, but I failed to produce any words. As long as I kept quiet, I felt as if there might still be hope. Mion bit her lip, but I knew she had already figured it out. But I saw her alive, and well in my vision. Did those spoiled apples anger the goddesses? My first thought was to try and defend myself. That pretty much exposed me as the filth that I was, if blaming each other oh shit. Did my blunder really fail the ritual? If so, no amount of apology would suffice. With tears brimming, I brushed off Mion's arm and fled the room. After telling a servant to call the doctor, I locked myself in the nearest toilet and bawled. I hoped nobody sat in the other cubicles, or they would hear me for sure. By the time I came out of the bathroom, afternoon had already settled in. I'd missed several cleaning duties, but lucky for me, Loke had bigger issues to attend to right now. This is a very pretty image right here. I love seeing her hair all sprawled out like this and the bells attached to her blanket. That night, I returned into Mion's room and found her asleep on the floor. If she wanted to yell at me until sunrise, so be it. Anything to at least lift her spirits a little. It killed me to see her sweating under a blanket like this. The towel on Mion's head had dried up, so I dunked it into the water bowl next to her. When Mion got sick as a child, Sasa would stay overnight to watch her. I thought Mion might have fainted sickness a few times so Sasa would stick around. None of this would ever happen again. I put the towel back on Mion's forehead, knowing the duty now belonged to me. Memories of Sasa kept playing in my head. If I had forced them to stop, I feared one day I might forget her face. That guard said Sasa's entire family perished in an explosion. Aside from Mion and I, there was nobody left around to mourn for her. Judging from the smears on Mion's cheeks, I knew she had been crying all afternoon. The sight of those tear marks made me want to weep again. If I could shed her share of tears, I would gladly do so until I turned blind. We have a new character just suddenly appearing. A wild Pokemon's appeared, everybody. I think we're going to get introduced to this character and then call it quits. Because we're kind of at a good part right now. We just got through all that drama, and it's still really sad. Because I was just not expecting them to take out a major character like that. It's kind of like when you find out in Game of Thrones that Ned Stark gets killed. You know, you're just kind of like, whoa. I thought he was like the main guy, you know. I snapped from my trance when I noticed a figure standing on the veranda. Absorbed in thought, I had failed to see him until now. Crap, how long has he been standing there? He looked to be a boy around my age when I first arrived in this temple. The flower patterns adorning his blue attire suggested he hailed from Westeria. He donned shoulder plates just like the ones the Westerian soldiers wore. If this boy belonged in the army, he must be the youngest member yet. Even his clothes seemed several sizes too big for him. In the past, seeing someone from my home city might have excited me, but East and Westeria were at war now. Did this guy come to assassinate Mio, the treasure of Easteria? For one thing, I knew he had zero interest in the likes of me. I spotted the blade tied to the boy's belt. Maybe I should call for the guards for help. But running now would mean leaving Mion with this guy. If I yelled, he might become agitated. Please, Sasa, lend me the strength to be Mion's knight. This room had no weapons for me to use, so I pulled off the towel from Mion's head and waved it around like a blade. The Westerian snickered at me, and to be honest, I could hardly blame him. Mion staggered out of bed. She must have woken when I took the towel off her. If this guy came to assassinate Mion, could he have picked another date? Give us at least time to mourn for our loss. Mion stepped in front of me, showing more poise than I had managed to muster. I wanted to take a step forward, but my legs jittered and froze me in place. She could easily just pull up her veil and Medusa this shit, you know? Chill out, I only came to deliver a message, the Westerian said. His voice sounded like it belonged to a child, so that confirmed my suspicions about his age. The Westerian pointed at Mion. Easteria will continue to use you for the war. But know that the West, we have a treasure of our own. Did he mean someone in Westeria also possessed the cursed site? When I lived there, I had never heard of such a person. There will be endless bloodshed if you remained here, the Westerian said to Mion. 3 nights from now, I'll wait for you in the forest outside Melody Way. There's someone who will be keen to meet you. The Westerian leaped over the railing and vanished into the shadows. With the boy gone, I folded my arms and grunted in an attempt to act tough. Yeah, you better run away. I'll go, Mion said, paying zero attention to my cool act. This smells like a trap, no matter how you look at it, I clasped Mion's arm. A trap for Westeria to possess your powers. Mion lowered her hands. The boy speaks the truth. There's indeed another person out there with the cursed sight, and she's been tampering with my spells. That's why your powers have become unstable? Mion nodded. I need to meet this person. In recent years, Mion's spells did appear to be faltering. We thought her powers might be on the decline, but now we know the real reason. Mion's fevers after each ritual had been worsening too. If this Westarian kept resisting Mion's spells, they might wipe each other out. Did this mean Westaria was responsible for Sasa's death too? I clenched my fist as I imagined pounding this person's face into jelly. Mion leaned forward and tapped her hat against my chest. I'm sorry for blaming you about Sasa. If I was more capable, she could have been saved. I'm only good at causing death and destruction. You're letting that Westarian's words get to you, I said. Mion shook her head. I've killed my parents with the cursed sight. By the time people in the temple figured out how my powers worked, so many people had already fallen. On my first day in the temple, Mion had supposedly killed a child who had flipped her veil out of curiosity. His mother had been executed, partly by Mion's hands as well. It's not your fault. I could think of no other empty words to say. Out of all the servants, Mion referred to only me by name. I thought that meant I understood her best, but nights like these reminded me that I knew nothing. If Mion wanted to escape this temple, I had no right to get in the way. Compared to freedom, my company meant nothing to her. In the end, I was but another servant. Alrighty, everybody. This is getting real good. The war has begun. Sasa has unfortunately passed away. I'm still trying to get over that, actually, that we won't see her again. And someone else with the power from Westaria is interfering with Mion. So I'd really like to see who that is, if they're another route option, or if it's his sister by chance, or whatever it may be. But alrighty, everybody, I'd love to hear your comments down below. Let me know what you think's going on in the game. Who do you think the Westarian treasure is? Is it someone that's been referenced already? Is it someone we don't know? What do you think? Who do you think that boy was as well? Just another unfortunate person like Guy? Or I'd like to hear your comments down below, please. Alrighty, everybody. Until next time, you all have a lovely day. And I will see you in the next video. Bye!